Okay. So I'll start reading from there and then we'll see how it goes. I hope everybody remembers about these little adventures that Jerry used to have with his dog Roger. And Roger was his constant, faithful companion. And so he's going to talk about, all the things that they discovered in all these. Forays that they had, as he calls it, foray, Foray, which means it's not really a journey, but it's a small kind of a trip without knowing where you're going, but you're exploring also on that. Okay. So during these trips, Roger and I came to know and be known by a great number of people in various parts of the surrounding countryside. There was, for example, a strange, mentally defective youth with a round face as expressionless as a puffball. He was always dressed in tattered shirt, shiny blue serge trousers that were rolled up to the knee, and on his head the elderly remains of a bowler hat without a brim. How many of you have seen pictures of a bowler hat? You need to imagine what a bowler hat is like in your mind to understand this description. And he says here that they were the elderly remains of a bowler hat. This expression means that the hat had become very old, it was tattered, and whatever else was there as part of that hat, this man would always wear it on his head. So he had this hat on his head, and a bowler hat is it's like this tall like this, and it has a nice deep kind of a thing. So but it was a tattered one, it was an old one, so it wasn't completely in its proper shape. Whenever he saw us, he came hurrying. Ma'am, you need to turn the page. He came hurrying through the olives, raised his absurd hat politely, and wished us good day in a voice as childish and sweet as a flute. He would stand watching us without expression, nodding at every remark I happened to make for 10 minutes or so. Then, raising his hat politely, he would go off through the trees. Then there was the immensely fat and cheerful Agathi, who lived in a tiny tumble down cottage high up in the hill. She was always sitting outside her house with a spindle of sheep's wool, twining and pulling it into coarse thread. She must have been well over 70, but her hair was still black and lustrous, plaited carefully and wound round a pair of polished cow's horns, an ornament that some of the older peasant women adopted. As she sat in the sun, like a great black toad with a scarlet headdress draped over the cow's horns, the bobbin of wool would rise and fall, twisting like a top, her fingers busy unraveling and plucking, and her drooping mouth with its hedge of broken and discolored teeth wide open as she sang loudly and harshly, but with great vigor. Vigor is energy. Okay, so look at the description of this character. Each character, the description is so vivid, children, that you will always remember them. And a lesson for all of us to learn is how we can observe and how we can turn that observation into some very interesting pieces of writing. So look at the comparisons that are being used, the metaphors that are being used, the similes that are being used, and the way the entire imagery is built. The entire picture is built for us to imagine. We can practically sit and draw. And here's a character, Agathi. Okay, another strange character, just as the earlier person he described with the bowler hat. It was from Agathi that I learnt some of the most beautiful and haunting of the peasant songs. Now, what is haunting? Who haunts? We all know, right? Who's supposed to haunt us? And how do we use this expression haunt? Who knows the meaning of haunt? Nobody reads ghost stories here? I'm quite surprised that nobody's read a ghost story and stories
Yeah,
of. Yes, you have, Disha? Okay,
scaring,
good. Okay, so haunting means when
scaring.
haunting is scary, yes, but the word haunt is to come to a place again and again. Now, we can use the word haunt in many different ways. Haunting is something that keeps coming back to your memory. So when Gerald says over here that it was the most haunting song, it means it was a song that he remembered again and again. And from Agathi, who kept singing outside, sitting outside her house, he learnt some of the most haunting peasant songs, those songs which he loved to hear over and over again. Sitting on an old tin in the sun, eating grapes or pomegranates from her garden, I would sing with her, and she would break off now and then to correct my pronunciation. We sang verse by verse the gay, rousing song of the river, Vangelio, and of how it dropped from the mountains, making the gardens rich, the fields fertile, and the trees heavy with fruit. We sang, rolling our eyes at each other in exaggerated coquetry, the funny little love song called Falsehood. Lies, lies, we wobbled, shaking our heads. All lies, but it is my fault for teaching you to go round the countryside telling people I love you. Then we would strike a mournful note and sing perhaps a slow, lilting song called Why Are You Leaving Me? We were almost overcome by this one and would wail out the long, soulful lyrics, our voices quivering. When we came to the last bit, the most heartrending of all, Agathi would clasp her hands to her great breast. Her black eyes would become misty and sad, and her chins would tremble with emotion. As the last discordant notes of our duet faded away, she would turn to me, wiping her nose on the corner of her headdress. What fools we are, eh? What fools sitting here in the sun singing, and of love too. I'm too old for it, and you are too young, and yet we waste our time singing about it. Ah, well, let's have a glass of wine, eh? Apart from Agathi, the person I liked best was the old shepherd Yanni, a tall, slouching man with a great hooked nose like an eagle and incredible mustaches. Okay. Children, does the name Yanni mean anything to any one of you? You're, of course, from a different time, but does anyone know of this musician called Yanni? Who's also Greek. I think Jugjeev sir and Manisha ma'am, or maybe Minakshi ma'am and I will relate to it more than the children here because Yanni was a very famous musician. And I think when we were much younger, he was very, very popular. Yanni played, of course, he played the piano and the keyboard, and he was excellent with music. So, Yanni is a common Greek name. And here is the shepherd called Yanni. Okay, and he was a slouching man with a great hooked nose like an eagle and incredible mustaches. I first met him one afternoon when Roger and I had spent an exhausting hour trying to dig a large green lizard out of its hole in a stone wall. At length, unsuccessful, sweaty, and tired, we had flung ourselves down beneath five little cypress trees that cast a neat square of shadow on the sun bleached grass. Lying there, I heard the gentle, drowsy tinkling of a goat bell, and presently the herds wandered past us, pausing to stare with vacant yellow eyes, bleat sneeringly, and then move on. The soft sound of the bells and of their mouths ripping and tearing at the undergrowth had a soothing effect on me, and by the time they had drifted slowly past and the shepherd appeared, I was nearly asleep. He stopped and looked at me, leaning heavily on his brown olive wood stick, his little black eyes fierce under his shaggy brows, his big boots planted firmly in the heather. Good afternoon, he greeted me gruffly. You are the foreigner, the little English lord? By then, I was used to the curious peasant idea that all English people were lords, and I admitted that that's who I was. He turned and roared at the goat, which had reared on its hind legs and was staring at a young olive, and then turned back. I will tell you something, little lord, he said. It is dangerous for you to lie here beneath these trees. I glanced up at the cypresses, but they seemed safe enough to me, and so I asked why he thought they were dangerous. Ah, you must sit under them, yes. They cast a good shadow, cold as well water. But that's the trouble, they tempt you to sleep, and you must never, for any reason, sleep beneath a cypress. He paused, stroked his mustache, waited for me to ask why, and then went on. Why? Why? Because if you did, you would be changed when you woke. Yes, the black cypresses, they are dangerous. When you sleep, their roots grow into your brains and steal them. And when you wake up, you are mad, head as empty as a whistle. I asked whether it was only the cypress that could do this, or did it apply to other trees? No, only the cypress, said the old man, peering up fiercely at the trees above me, as though to see whether they were listening. Only the cypress is the thief of intelligence. So be warned, little lord, and don't sleep here. He nodded briefly, gave another fierce glance at the dark blades of the cypress as if daring them to make some comment, and then picked his way carefully through the myrtle bushes to where his goats grazed scattered about the hill, their great udders swinging like bagpipes beneath their bellies. I got to know Yanni very well, for I was always meeting him during my explorations, and occasionally I visited him in his little house when he would ply me with fruit and give me advice and warnings to keep me safe on my walks. Perhaps one of the most weird and fascinating characters I met during my travels was the rose beetle man. He had a fairy tale air about him that was impossible to resist, and I used to look forward eagerly to my infrequent meetings with him. I first saw him on a high, lonely road leading to one of the remote mountain villages. I could hear him long before I could see him, for he was playing a rippling tune on a shepherd's pipe, breaking off now and then to sing a few words in a curious nasal voice. As he rounded the corner, both Roger and I stopped and stared at him in amazement. He had a sharp, fox like face with large, slanting eyes of such a dark brown that they appeared black. They had a weird, vacant look about them, and a sort of bloom such as one finds on a plum, a purely covering, almost like a cataract. He was short and slight, with a thinness about his wrists and neck that argued a lack of food. His dress was fantastic, and on his head was a shapeless hat with a very wide, floppy brim. It had once been bottle green, but it was now speckled and smeared with dust, wine stains, and cigarette burns. In the band was stuck a fluttering forest of feathers: cock feathers, hoopoe feathers, owl feathers, the wing of a kingfisher, the claw of a hawk, and a large, dirty, white feather that may have come from a swan. His shirt was worn and frayed, grey with sweat, and round the neck dangled an enormous cravat of the most startling blue satin. His coat was dark and shapeless, with patches of different hues here and there. On the sleeve, a bit of white cloth and a design of rosebuds. On the shoulder, a triangular patch of wine red and white spots. The pockets of this garment bulged, the contents almost spilling out. Combs, balloons, with little highly colored pictures of the saints, olive wood carvings of snakes, camels, dogs, and horses, cheap mirrors, a riot of handkerchiefs, and long twisted rolls of bread decorated with seeds. His trousers, patched like his coat, drooped over a pair of scarlet charuiyas, leather shoes with upturned toes, decorated with a large black and white pompon. This extraordinary character carried on his back bamboo cages full of pigeons and young chickens, several mysterious sacks, and a large bunch of fresh green leeks. With one hand, he held his pipe to his mouth, and in the other, a number of lengths of cotton, to each of which was tied an almond sized rose beetle, glittering golden green in the sun, all of them flying around his hat with desperate, deep buzzing, trying to escape from the thread tied firmly around their waists. Occasionally, tired of circling round and round without success, one of the beetles would settle for a moment on his hat before launching itself off once more on its endless merry-go-round. So just imagine this character carrying so many beetles tied on threads which were tied to his hat. And the beetles were all live, they weren't dead beetles. They're all tied like that. And he wore them and he moved around with all these beetles around him so comfortably. I don't think you would have read of such characters anywhere else. When he saw us, the rose beetle man stopped, gave a very exaggerated start, doffed his ridiculous hat, and swept us a low bow. Roger was so overcome by this unlooked for attention that he let out a volley of surprised barks. The man smiled at us, pulled on his hat again, raised his hands, and woggled his long, bony fingers at me. Amused and rather startled by this apparition, I politely bade him good day. He gave another courtly bow. I asked him if he had been to some fiesta. He nodded his head vigorously, raised his pipe to his lips, and played a lilting little tune on it, pranced a few steps in the dust on the road, and then stopped and jerked his thumb over his shoulder, pointing back the way he had come. He smiled, patted his pockets, and rubbed his forefinger and thumb together in the Greek way of expressing money. I suddenly realized that he must be dumb. So, standing in the middle of the road, I carried on a conversation with him, and he replied with a varied and very clever pantomime. Who knows what a pantomime is? Does anyone know what a pantomime is?
Is it
Just
read the same from front to back and back to front?
pantomime. No, no, that's a palindrome, ma'am.
That's a palindrome.
Pantomime is actually a form of acting where actors only use their facial expressions and their hands, their gestures, and don't talk at all. So you may have seen some of these people They wear black clothes generally on stage when they do a pantomime, and their faces are painted white and maybe outlined with red or black. So, because this rose beetle man was dumb, he used to only use all these actions and talk with his expressions. And Jerry was also trying to talk to him in the same way. So I asked what the rose beetles were for and why he had them tied to pieces of cotton. He held his hand out to denote small boys, took one of the lengths of cotton from which a beetle hung, and whirled it rapidly round his head. Immediately, the insect came to life and started on its planet like circling of his hat, and he beamed at me. Pointing up at the sky, he stretched his arms out and gave a deep nasal buzzing while he banked and swooped across the road. Aeroplane! Any fool could see that. Then he pointed to the beetles, held out his hand to denote children, and whirled his stalk of beetles around his head so that they all started to buzz peevishly. Imagine this, children. I want you to imagine this because you have to understand this. So, this man had on his hat all these beetles tied to strings of cotton. And when Jerry asked him to explain why did he have all these beetles, then he pointed that children like to watch him. And when he swirls these beetles around, they start moving around his hat like that and they start buzzing. And the whole thing is like that of the whole site reminds children of an aeroplane. So he would do that and he would run. So it reminded them of an aeroplane. And that's the way he probably made a little money, right? So, exhausted by his explanation, he sat down by the edge of the road, played a short tune on his flute, breaking off to sing in his curious nasal voice. They were not articulate words he used, but a series of strange gruntings and tenor squeaks that appeared to be formed at the back of his throat and expelled through his nose. He produced them, however, with such verve and such wonderful facial expressions that you were convinced the curious sounds really meant something. Presently, he stuffed his flute into his bulging pocket, gazed at me reflectively for a moment, and then swung a small sack off his shoulder, undid it, and to my delight and astonishment, tumbled half a dozen tortoises into the dusty road. Their shells had been polished with oil until they shone, and by some means or other, he had managed to decorate their front legs with little red bows. Imagine tortoises with shiny shells and their little front legs tied with little red bows. Just picture it in your mind. Slowly and ponderously, they unpacked their heads and legs from their gleaming shells and set off down the road, doggedly and without enthusiasm. I watched them, fascinated. The one that particularly took my fancy was quite a small one with a shell about the size of a teacup. It seemed more sprightly than the others, and its shell was a paler color chestnut, caramel, and amber. Its eyes were bright, and its walk was as alert as any tortoise's could be. I sat contemplating it for a long time. I convinced myself that the family would greet its arrival at the villa with tremendous enthusiasm, even perhaps congratulating me on finding such an elegant specimen. The fact that I had no money on me did not worry me in the slightest, for I would simply tell the man to call at the villa for payment the next day. It never occurred to me that he might not trust me. The fact that I was English was sufficient, for the islanders had a love and respect for the Englishman out of all proportion to his worth. They would trust an Englishman where they would not trust each other. I asked the rose beetle man the price of the little tortoise. He held up both hands, fingers spread out. However, I hadn't watched the peasants transacting business for nothing. I shook my head firmly and held up two fingers, unconsciously imitating the man. He closed his eyes in horror at the thought and held up nine fingers. I held up three. He shook his head and after some time thought held up six fingers. I, in turn, shook my head and held up five. So, see, this whole process of bargaining is going on, right? And I'm sure some of you may have seen your mothers or grandmothers bargaining with the sabji wala or with somebody else and saying, nahi, nahi, पांच नहीं दूंगी चार दूंगी या तीन दूंगी kind of a thing, right? So the rose beetle man shook his head and sighed deeply and sorrowfully. So we sat in silence and stared at the tortoises crawling heavily and uncertainly about the road with the curious, graceless determination of babies. Presently, the rose beetle man indicated the little tortoise and held up six fingers again. I shook my head and held up five. Roger yawned loudly. He was thoroughly bored by this silent bargaining. The rose beetle man picked up the reptile and showed me in pantomime how smooth and lovely its shell was, how erect its head, how pointed its nails. I remained implacable. He shrugged, handed me the tortoise, and held up five fingers. Then I told him I had no money, that he would have to come the next day to the villa, and he nodded as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Excited by owning this new pet, I wanted to get back home as quickly as possible in order to show it to everyone. So I said goodbye, thanked him, and hurried off along the road. When I reached the place where I had to cut down through the olive groves, I stopped and examined my acquisition carefully. He was undoubtedly the finest tortoise I had ever seen, and worth, in my opinion, at least twice what I had paid for him. I patted his scaly head with my finger and placed him carefully in my pocket. Before diving down the hillside, I glanced back. The rose beetle man was still in the same place on the road, but he was doing a little jig. A jig is a dance, okay? Prancing and swaying. His flute wobbling, while in the road at his feet, the tortoises ambled to and fro, dimly and heavily. The new arrival was duly christened Achilles and turned out to be the most intelligent and lovable beast possessed of a peculiar sense of humor. At first, he was tethered by a leg in the garden, but as he grew tamer, we let him go where he pleased. Tethered is tied. So when the tortoise was brought home, he was named Achilles. How many of you read stories of Greek mythology, Greek legends, and know of Achilles? Does anyone read Greek stories of Greek heroes, mythology? You should, if you haven't read any, please do read stories of Greek mythology. And maybe sometime in the book club, we might want to read something from there also. So Achilles is one such character, but this tortoise has been named as Achilles. Okay, so and if you read about Achilles, you will know why one proverb in English has come from Achilles. It's called the Achilles heel. But I'm not going to tell you about it because I want you to find out. And then you may share it with us the next week. Okay? At first, he was tethered by a leg in the garden, but as he grew tamer, we let him go where he pleased. He learnt his name in a very short time, and we had only to call out once or twice and then wait patiently for a while, and he would appear, lumbering along the narrow cobbled paths on tiptoe, his head and neck stretched out eagerly. He loved being fed and would squat regally in the sun while we held out bits of lettuce, dandelions, or grapes for him. He loved grapes as much as Roger did, so there was always great rivalry. Achilles would sit mumbling the grapes in his mouth, the juice running down his chin, and Roger would lie nearby watching him with agonized eyes, his mouth drooling saliva. Roger always had his fair share of the fruit, but even so, he seemed to think it a waste to give it away, to give such delicacies to a tortoise. When the feeding was over, if I didn't keep an eye on him, Roger would creep up to Achilles and lick his front vigorously in an attempt to get the grape juice that the reptile had dribbled down himself. Achilles, affronted at such a liberty, would snap at Roger's nose, and then, when the licks became too overpowering and moist, he would retreat into his shell with an indignant wheeze and refused to come out until we had removed Roger from the scene. But the fruit that Achilles liked best were wild strawberries. He would become positively hysterical at the mere sight of them, lumbering to and fro, craning his head to see if you were going to give him any, gazing at you pleadingly with his tiny boot button eyes. The very small strawberries he would devour at a gulp, for they were only the size of a fat pea. But if you gave him a big one, say the size of a hazelnut, he behaved in a way that I had never seen any other tortoise emulate. He would grab the fruit and, holding it firmly in his mouth, would stumble off at top speed until he reached a safe and secluded spot among the flower beds, where he would drop the fruit and then eat it at leisure, returning for another one when he had finished. As well as developing a passion for strawberries, Achilles also developed a passion for human company. Okay, now that was a strange tortoise. Okay, one which was fed all these fruits. And what were his favorites? I want to know if you all are listening. So, what was his favorite fruit? Who's going to tell me? Akrit, Disha, who's going to tell me? Hello? Manisha ma'am, are they there?
Yes, ma'am, they all are there.
They're all are there.
They're
So
so
are we
engrossed that
listening?
they didn't understand
I
that they have to answer the question.
you have to answer the question. Tell me, yes, Nilashi ma'am.
Wild strawberries.
Yes. Okay. How many of you children like strawberries? Yeah, some child, Talat has written strawberry. Okay. How many of you like strawberries and grapes? Do you like them as much as Achilles did? Okay, so maybe there would have been a reason for him to like it, right? Oh, I like it, says Talat. Okay, wonderful. So let's see what else he did. So he also liked human company, passion for human company. Passion is an extreme liking. Okay, let anyone come into the garden to sit and sunbathe, to read, or for any other reason, and before long there would be a rustling among the sweet williams, and Achilles' wrinkled and earnest face would be poked through. If you were sitting in a chair, he contented himself with getting as close to your feet as possible, and there he would sink into a deep and peaceful sleep, his head drooping out of his shell, his nose resting on the ground. If, however, you were lying on a rug sunbathing, Achilles would be convinced that you were lying on the ground simply in order to provide him with amusement. He would surge down the path and onto the rug with an expression of bemused good humor on his face. He would pause, survey you thoughtfully, and then choose a portion of your anatomy on which to practice mountaineering. Now, why does the author say this? You all know what is anatomy? Your body, okay? And the author says that if you were lying down on a rug, Achilles would first survey you, inspect you properly, and then he would choose a portion of your body on which he would practice mountaineering. Why mountaineering? Why mountaineering? Who's going to explain that to me? Akrit, would you like to try? Or Disha, Talat, whoever is here and wants to try guessing, why does the author say that he would choose a portion of your anatomy on which to practice mountaineering? What does climbing on the body have to do with mountaineering? Come on, today I think children are a little inattentive, are we? Or is it that you don't understand this? In
Ma'am,
neither case, you can speak, yes?
maybe mountaineering is a sport,
Okay.
and he wants to do sport.
No, no, mountaineering may be a sport, but what does this expression mean here? Try and understand what the author's describing. He says that the how big is a tortoise as compared to a human body here? It's a tiny thing, right? And the person who's lying down on a rug is so big for that tiny tortoise. So, if the tortoise has to climb on the body of the human being, it would be like climbing on a hill, it would be like climbing on a mountain. That's why the author's using this exaggerated expression that he would decide on which portion of the body should he practice his mountaineering. All right. So, what you need to do is, as we are reading, keep your imagination also on so you can understand what is the expression trying to tell us. What is it describing? And we can actually picture in our mind, okay, here was a little tortoise, here's this big person lying on the ground, and he's climbing over the body, right? Suddenly, to have the sharp claws of a determined tortoise embedded in your thigh as he tries to lever himself up onto your stomach is not conducive to relaxation. If you shook him off and moved the rug, it would only give you temporary respite. For Achilles would circle the garden grimly until he found you again. This habit became so tiresome that after many complaints and threats from the family, I had to lock him up whenever we lay in the garden. Then one day, the garden gate was left open, and Achilles was nowhere to be found. Search parties were immediately organized, and the family, who up till then had spent most of their time openly making threats against the reptile's life, wandered about the olive groves shouting, Achilles, strawberries, Achilles, Achilles, strawberries. At length, we found him. Ambling along in his usual detached manner, he had fallen into a disused well, the wall of which had long since disintegrated, and the mouth of which was almost covered by ferns. He was, to our regret, quite dead. Even Leslie's attempts at artificial respiration and Margot's suggestion of forcing strawberries down his throat to give him, as she explained, something to live for, failed to get any response. So mournfully and solemnly, his corpse was buried in the garden under a small strawberry plant, which was mother's suggestion. A short funeral address, written and read in a trembling voice by Larry, made the occasion a memorable one. It was only marred by Roger, who, in spite of all my protests, insisted on wagging his tail throughout the burial service. Not long after Achilles had been taken from us, I obtained another pet from the rose beetle man. This time it was a pigeon. He was still very young and had to be force fed on bread and milk and soaked corn. He was the most revolting bird to look at, with his feathers pushing through the wrinkled scarlet skin, mixed with the horrible yellow down that covers baby pigeons and makes them look as though they have been peroxiding their hair. Owing to his repulsive and obese appearance, Larry suggested we call him Quasimodo, and liking the name without realizing the implications, I agreed. For a long time after, he could feed himself, and when all his feathers had grown, Quasimodo retained a sprig of yellow down on his head, which gave him the appearance of a rather pompous judge wearing a wig several sizes too small. So now the next pet that he had was this pigeon called Quasimodo, okay, who looked quite strange. Owing to his unorthodox upbringing and the fact that he had no parents to teach him the facts of life, Quasimodo became convinced that he was not a bird at all and refused to fly. Instead, he walked everywhere. If he wanted to get onto a table or a chair, he stood below it, ducking his head and cooing in a rich contralto until someone lifted him up. He was always eager to join us in anything we did and would even try to come for walks with us. This, however, we had to stop, for either you carried him on your shoulder, which was risking an accident to your clothes, or else you let him walk behind. If you let him walk, then you had to slow down your own pace to suit his. For should you get uh, too far ahead, you would hear the most frantic and imploring coos and turn round to find Quasimodo running desperately after you, his tail wagging seductively, his iridescent chest pouted out with indignation at your cruelty. Cruelty, why? Because you left him behind, right? Quasimodo insisted on sleeping in the house. No amount of coaxing or scolding would get him to inhabit the pigeon loft I had constructed for him. He preferred to sleep on the end of Margot's bed. Eventually, however, he was banished to the drawing room sofa, for if Margot turned over in bed at night, Quasimodo would wake, hobble up the bed, and perch on her face, cooing loudly and lovingly. It was Larry who discovered that Quasimodo was a musical pigeon. Not only did he like music, but he actually seemed to recognize two different varieties, the waltz and the military march. Okay, these are two different kinds of tunes. Waltz is a three beat tune. What is a military march? How does it go? Like a marching beat, okay, a tune like that. So for ordinary music, he would waddle as close to the gramophone as possible and sit there with a pouting chest, eyes half closed, purring softly to himself. Now, how many of you children have seen a gramophone? Has any one of you seen even pictures of a gramophone? So, when we were small, we didn't have uh, a YouTube, or we didn't have something like an iPad or any of these devices like a phone or earphones that we could just wear and hear music. But we had something called a gramophone, which was like a box, and all the music was stored in a disc, and this disc was put on the box, and there was a little handle with a needle which was put on the box for it, and this disc would move, and this entire thing would cause music for us to, or would create music for us to hear. That's what a gramophone is. So maybe you could look up pictures of a gramophone and see how it, yes, you have seen it in a picture, Talat, good. And I think all of us, the oldies over here, we have all heard music from a gramophone, and we used to call it a record player also. The discs were called records, and we used to play it, they were of different sizes depending upon how long the songs were, right? Okay, so what did Quasimodo like? He liked music, and every time the music was played, he would waddle as close to the gramophone as possible and sit there with pouting chest, eyes half closed, purring softly to himself. But if the tune was a waltz, he would move round and round the machine, bowing, twisting, and cooing tremulously. For a march, on the other hand, Salsa for preference, Salsa is the name of a marching tune, he drew himself up to his full height, inflated his chest, and stamped up and down the room, while his coo became so rich and throaty that he seemed in danger of strangling himself. He never attempted to perform these actions for any other kind of music except marches and waltzes. Occasionally, however, he had not, if he had not heard any music for some time, he would, in his enthusiasm at hearing the gramophone, do a march for a waltz or vice versa. But he invariably stopped and corrected himself halfway through. Now, we really don't know whether Gerald was really exaggerating, but he claims that all this is true, and he probably has such a wonderful way of describing things that he makes it appear absolutely true and natural, right? Any thoughts that you want to share? Any one of you? Are you finding it interesting to read about all these characters? First, the people, and then all these creatures, the tortoise and the bird. Can I have some reactions, please? Yeah? Yes. Yes, ma'am. But why? What, yes, ma'am? What is it that you like? How do you react to what we are reading? Just let's have a quick answer. What, so far, of all the descriptions that we read, which is the character that you liked best? Okay, Myra says, imagining all this seems like an adorable cartoon and not a real story. Yes, of course, it seems like it's fiction. Okay, which of the characters do you really like? The Beetle Man, or the tortoise, or Quasimodo, Achilles or Quasimodo? Which one? No reactions? The one with the beetles was really interesting, okay? That's the rose beetle man. His name is the rose beetle man. Okay, so let's make a small attempt to remember names that we are reading here and a little bit of descriptions. And maybe you might want to, yeah, you like the pigeon, Tahir. What is the name of him? What was the pigeon's name? We just read about him. Yeah, tell me the name. Quasimodo. Yes, Quasimodo. And there is again some reference to Quasimodo. So you can find out two things. What is the reference made to Achilles? Who was Achilles actually in history? And who was Quasimodo? Both these things you can find out as a little bit of a homework to do, right? So do we have time to continue, Jugjeev sir?
No, no, ma'am. I think the chapter is long,
Yeah.
so
So
we
we'll
should.
stop over here
Yeah,
because it
I think
goes on to, yeah.
we shouldn't forget Spyro,
Oh, yes, we shouldn't
taxi
forget
driver.
Spyro. Spyro will keep coming every little while, right?
Yes,
But since Gerald's main intention is to share with us the richness of Corfu, he goes on to telling us about all these characters. And he has to make it really interesting so that the book was appealing to people.
right, right.
Excuse me, Brinda ma'am, there's
Yes.
hardly one page left for the
We should
chapter.
finish
So
the
can we
chapter.
complete?
Okay,
We
let's
should finish
finish
the
this chapter.
chapter.
One sad day we found on waking Quasimodo that he had duped us all. Duped means cheated, okay? For there among the cushions lay a glossy white egg. He never quite recovered from this. He became embittered, sullen, and started to peck irritably if you attempted to pick him. Then he laid another egg, and his nature changed completely. He, or rather she, became wilder and wilder, treating us as though we were her worst enemies, slinking up to the kitchen door for food as if she feared for her life. Not even the gramophone would tempt her back into the house. The last time I saw her, she was sitting in an olive tree, cooing in the most pretentious and coy manner, while further along the branch, a large and very masculine looking pigeon twisted and cooed in a perfect ecstasy of admiration. For some time, the rose beetle man would turn up at the villa fairly regularly with some new addition to my menagerie, a frog, perhaps, or a sparrow with a broken leg. A menagerie is like a mini zoo, okay? One afternoon, mother and I, in a fit of extravagant sentimentalism, bought up his entire stock of rose beetles, and then when he had left, let them all go in the garden. For days, the villa was full of rose beetles, crawling on the beds, lurking in the bathroom, banging against the lights at night, and falling like emeralds into our laps. The last time I saw the rose beetle man was one evening when I was sitting on a hilltop overlooking the road. He had obviously been to some fiesta and had been piled with much wine, for he swayed to and fro across the road, piping a melancholy tune on his flute. I shouted a greeting, and he waved extravagantly without looking back. As he rounded the corner, he was saluted for a moment against the pale lavender evening sky. I could see his battered hat with his fluttering feathers, the bulging pockets of his coat, the bamboo cages full of sleepy pigeons on his back, and above his head, circling drowsily round and round, I could see the dim specks that were the rose beetles. Then he rounded the curve of the road, and there was only the pale sky with a new moon floating in it like a silver feather, and the soft twittering of his flute dying away in the dusk. Okay. So that's the description of. So this chapter on the Quasimodo, I remember it being part of many textbooks, and remember teaching this portion, this extract. This was this one, and later on we will read about his donkey called Sally. These were very favorites of booksellers putting it in their books. These extracts from Gerald's stories. Yeah. Yes. Any questions before we end? Okay,
Oh,
great. Yes, sir.
this uh, I'm putting up a picture of a rose beetle.
Yeah. Wow.
That's what a
Yes.
beetle looks like. I, I, they were quite okay at these beetles falling in their laps. I mean,
Yeah.
I, I don't know. My
I think it's because they lived in nature like that and very
right,
close to nature. But I
right.
think for us, city-bred people, for us, we would probably be shrieking and shouting and getting rid of it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's the point around. How you grow up makes
Yes.
a big difference,
True.
right? And
Yeah.
because exactly. I mean, to me, it's like a creepy crawly
Yes.
because we are
Yes.
city bred,
Absolutely. Correct.
and so
Great.
that's a gramophone.
Yeah, that's a gramophone. There you are, children. Thank you, Jugjeev sir, for doing that. Later on, the gramophones came without that horn kind of a thing,
Yeah,
and they were just plain boxes. Yeah.
yeah. So I was just reading the other day in the newspaper that many bars are being set up. I think it was in
Yes.
New York or somewhere where records are playing again.
Yes, true. In fact, I have a relative who has now a little box like that with smaller discs, not like the gramophones of those days, but these are disc players as they call it now. So yeah,
Right.
some of these things are coming
Yeah.
back. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. And let's see. Maybe I can show you a bowler hat as well.
Yes, a bowler hat. There's a famous play, Two Children Called the Man with the Bowler Hat. I have seen Rose Beetles. Good, Disha. Ah, there you are. The bowler hat. Okay.
So this uh, point around pigeon was Cosmometer was walking, right? It
Yeah.
didn't learn how to fly. So,
Yes.
in my balcony, many a time pigeons are hatched.
Huh.
Somebody comes, lays
Yeah,
eggs or
yeah, yeah,
whatever, and then over time. And
yeah.
so one has sort of seen them when a pigeon is born, it is really ugly.
Yes, it is.
It's
Most.
really ugly. It's like
Huh.
a small brown mass.
Yes.
And yeah, I think I would say in about 10 days,
Yeah.
figures out how to fly. And
Exactly.
it's at the first level, it's sort of hopping around in the balcony on its, just trying
Yeah.
to fly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the fascinating thing is it's basically is learning by seeing the mother and, I mean, just sort of,
It's an instinct.
yeah, it's an
and
instinct.
and I think the mother urges it to fly, and
Yeah,
again the expression comes from here, where they get actually kicked out of their nest. They are literally dropped out of their nest so that they survive, and if they don't, then that's it. But it's nature's way of letting the fittest survive also. So these birds, after a point, the mother doesn't fend for them anymore. So
yeah,
they have to go and look for their food. They have to learn to fly, otherwise they don't survive.
yeah. And as you said, once in a while, one of them won't make it, but most
Yeah,
of them make it,
they do. They
right?
do.
So, Myra, you want to tell us about it?
Yeah, Talat is,
Talat and Myra also wrote something
yeah,
earlier.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, giving food is a big thing, right? I mean, there's
Yes.
certain many parts of Delhi where I see people are,
Oh, yeah, but there's a lot of writing about that too,
yeah,
because
yeah.
they've
You
discovered
shouldn't be
that
giving them food, actually.
pigeons have certain, um, I mean, they cause a lot of harm to the
Yeah,
human
yeah, yeah.
lungs. Yes,
The
so
droppings are supposed to be
yeah.
carcinogenic.
Absolutely, yes. Yes,
Yeah,
Nilashi, do you
Nilashi.
want to say something?
Yes, I actually was going to say, Brinda ma'am, what you were saying about the
Yeah,
pigeons pooping
yeah,
and the lung diseases that have actually increased in the cities.
yes,
So,
yes, it has. It
and
has.
they're not supposed to be sitting on the AC transmitters.
Yeah, yeah. True,
We
true.
talked
So
of,
when I was writing about school,
Huh.
balcony, like Sadat is writing about school, we should make I mean, I'm sure it's very fascinating for children, but it's also
Yeah,
quite harmful in some way.
absolutely right. Yeah.
so, you also came across pantomime, and I think
Huh.
Indian, uh, Indian sort of examples of
Yes.
dance forms
Yeah.
where the dancers are communicating a lot with their expression,
Yes.
and they're really, really good. Does anybody know any Indian dance form where they convey meaning, words, stories, in fact,
All
through their
stories,
expression? Yes,
all the mythology through dance, the Ramayana,
yes,
the Mahabharata, everything.
yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes,
to background music. And
yes.
today, pantomime is very, very popular. And I'm sure a lot of children, if you
Yeah.
go on to YouTube, you will be able to see some. Yes, Myra has something to say. Okay, so she's talking about an egg that her brother touched, and what happened to him then?
Myra, why don't you raise your hand? Manisha
Hmm.
ma'am will unmute you and talk to us. Go
Yes.
ahead,
Akansha.
ma'am.
Yeah.
A few years ago, a pigeon made a nest in my balcony, and
she laid eggs, and my brother was like really small at that time, and he was really excited about the pigeon and all, and he touched the egg, and I don't know, the maybe the mother pigeon saw it or something. After that she abandoned the egg, and my mother told me that if you touch the egg, then the pigeon will like abandon the egg and not take care of it anymore.
Yeah. So, Talat, if you raise your hand, then Manisha ma'am will unmute you. Then she's easy for her to figure out your name and unmute you, and then you can. Yeah, go ahead. You have to unmute yourself now and go ahead.
So, am I audible?
Little louder, please.
Okay, so sir, in our school, many of the pigeons are there. Sometimes we give them food, and when we study in our classroom, so they come and make nest there in front of us. When they come in our classroom, we give them food also there, because our school had taught us that the animals cannot say anything, but their actions can be more powerful than their words.
Yeah, good. But I think somebody over there will have to see whether those pigeons are coming too close to you. Like Nilashi ma'am just pointed out, it can be a little tricky, right? So some adult will have to take care of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody, Nilashi talked of Bharatnatyam. Yeah, Bharatnatyam, Kathakali. I was in Kerala last November and I saw a Kathakali performance, and I mean the full story is being done through expressions and actions. It's fascinating.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Great. Thank you. Thank you,
Okay,
everybody. I think
thank you, ma'am.
you're
As
net
usual,
ready for the
brilliant.
next book to be read. Yeah.
Sir, can we read the reflections which children have written?
Yeah,
So, are you
yeah.
sharing the screen, sir?
I will.
I have a little video of Bharatanatyam. I'm trying to find it out because the last day when I went to Kerala, and
But
we have.
if I think Akansha is there, and Akansha has written a piece on her on Jamba's Kishori, but I think she should talk to us about it.
Exactly. So, Akansha, can you please come in and let us know about
Talk
your
to us about
experience
it. You've
at Masbata?
written, but let's just tell us.
I have unmuted her. Akansha?
Yes, good morning, everyone.
Yes, good
Morning.
morning. Please share.
Brilliant.
I one day I just randomly applied for the internship in this Good School Alliance, but I wasn't expecting to be a part of this Jabas Kishori project. But we went to Dehradun for this 3 day project, and I really enjoyed it a lot. I mean, I socialized with all the girls, adolescent girls, and interacted with them, find out many problems related to them in the villages that they face, their struggles. I
Right. So
think the most common problem,
tell us a little bit how they are different, about their struggles a little bit.
I think the major problem in their villages is that they don't have clean drinking water, which causes many great diseases like the kidney stones.
Right.
A lot of them are facing that kidney stones. Mm.
Yeah. No, that's something that I'm sure. I don't know if Asad knows about it now. Minakshi, Manisha. I'm sure maybe he can
Yes,
do something about it. Towards the
yes, yes,
direct.
yes, Rukri sir. I think the family knows about this for as long as they have been there. And so does Meenakshi ma'am, since he's now working there in the school. And that's why the project becomes important because this is like a small seed into making sure that we're doing something about it, along with the students who are coming from different schools, teachers coming from different schools. So, like Akansha said, I would request for all the students here to actually read about Akansha's reflections, Roshni's reflections, and also Pooja ma'am's and Disha's, and see if all of you would also like to contribute in some way and be part of Radha's story.
So let me hunt for that. Akansha can read it out to us, maybe. Yeah, that's the logo. Yeah, so you could just not necessarily read it out, but something else you want to tell us about Akansha besides what you've just said.
Yeah, I one thing I want to add that the girls and everyone in the village, not everyone, but the girls we interacted were very sweet. And if you interact with everyone with like sweetly, smoothly, then they will open up their problems, I think.
Right, right. And are most of them going to school, not going to school?
Yeah, they're going to school till class 8th or 10th, and then they
Okay.
don't go to school because of family pressures, I think.
Oh, so after class 8, they normally don't go because of family pressure, you're saying. So Akansha has written this lovely piece, and as Minashi said, please do read it. Okay, so do you want to read the conclusion, Akansha?
Yeah, sure. The 3-day field experience under the Jabaz Kishori project highlighted serious challenges related to healthcare, education, infrastructure, and awareness. Addressing these issues through affordable healthcare, better roads, quality education, and motivation can help create a healthier, educated, and empowered generation of girls. And I
Thank you.
think the most important thing we should do first is to improve their healthcare facilities.
Yeah, no, I think it's good that you pointed it out. Uh, Minashi, these guys will have connects with other NGOs who work on water, work on healthcare. Maybe that's one direction. I can also try and hunt for some NGOs who will maybe interested in working in these areas.
Yes, Shruti, for sure. I think also if you could find some grants where girls can have cycles or sewing machines. Akansha, you remember? So many of them would like to sew and learn skills that can help them earn a little bit of money while being in the village.
Yeah, a lot of them had this sewing habit hobby, I think.
Not habit. It's a skill that they're learning and they learn from their family.
So they're learning already and now they want sewing machines of their own.
Yes, yes. Some of the girls have dropped out of school
Right,
because in the village, as you can imagine, the schools are not up until grade 10 or 12. So they are requesting that it's okay if they learn till grade 8, but have learning some skills to earn a little bit of money for themselves will be great. And that's why the sewing machines.
right, right, right. No, I'm glad these things are coming out because I think slowly these issues can be worked on, yeah, for sure.
My suggestion would be sewing machine fine, but we need sewing machine for that. That's a different thing. But if they really want to earn well, this will just mean a little bit of money. Somebody will come and give them their clothes to repair or to make something. We can always think of a theme since that area is behind the Mohan forest. Elephant, we are trying to protect the elephants over there, and there are lots of jungle animals and all. We can have a theme of these people actually creating designs based on elephants and the local thing, local birds and trees and etc., and market those as a cooperative society. If we could help them do that, that will really help them earn a lot. Like it will become like Shane Bandar Jur or something. We name it like that, and then we
Right.
market it. Why I'm coming across this thing is that okay, we have lots of small tailors all around. Okay, and they're not earning much. Okay, and we I think when we talk about the growth of an area, we need to support them economically more in a much more stronger way rather than just helping them live at subsistence level, because they are here at a subsistence level. Okay, we want to push them further. So if we could plan it out that way, think of it that way, teach them various art in that manner, stitching clothes, embroidery, screen printing, bandhage, and all those things, that will help them grow further as a community. Because subsistence is not the point. They are at a subsistence level. We want to really push them forward. Bandarju should grow, and that should become an example as to what we can do in this area. So there could be miniature paintings, which, as somebody has told me, that the Garhwali School of Art is almost dead. We can have those things people could take as a memento from here, or which could become popular at least in that area, and then later on in India as well. Like you have those Gond paintings and the Madhubani paintings in Bihar. It started from a village and then spread across. So that's my viewpoint, of course.
No, those are very good ideas. I think we should set aside some time and sort of see how to what we can do about it. I think Metropolis can certainly help bringing in other folks in the space as well. Okay, so uh, okay, so anybody wants like to read this? What Akash has written? I don't know if Akash is here.
May I?
Any volunteers to read?
Myra, you want to read?
Yes, ma'am.
Please.
In today's session, we had a great session with Karthik sir. In today's session, we learned to make stories and poems using three different random words. And at last, they told us to make stories and poems with six words, which are binoculars, jungle, ship, bank, torch, and lamp. According to me, it's a very interesting way to enhance our creativity. Later, we had a book reading session with Jugjeev sir, which was very interesting. So it was a very nice session and I liked it all. By Akash Agarwal.
Okay, this is on the same thing. Pragyan Prashad. Prashad. That's right. Okay. Okay, this is on the same topic. Sakshi, Ananya, Jaiswal. So this is an interesting one, and maybe Myra, you want to just read this because it's see
Yes,
when
sir.
we say that reflect, it's not necessarily you have to reflect on what was what happened in the class. You could just talk about anything you feel like. So go ahead, Myra.
I never thought a small moment could leave such a lasting impact until I read a story about a boy who complained about helping at home and ignored the animals around him. One day, when he saw his younger sister protecting a frightened bird, something changed in him. That simple scene attracted my attention because it felt natural and real. As the story continued, I became engaged, thinking about my own actions and responsibilities. What truly hooked me was how the story quietly showed the importance of care, empathy, and family support without directly explaining the lesson. Reflecting on this made me realize that powerful messages are best delivered through relatable stories that touch emotions and stay with the reader long after the story ends. A short, meaningful story attracts attention by feeling real and familiar. It engages the reader by creating an emotional connection. This emotional link is what truly hooks the reader and makes the message memorable.
Right. So that's Ananya sort of just sharing some thoughts, right? And in many ways it's related, in some ways it's not related to what happened in the session. So please feel free to share, write. I mean, the idea is to express yourself, right? That's the real purpose. Yeah, this is Soumya. I haven't seen Soumya for a while. Aradhya Mohan Jalan. Yes, he is our curator, but I don't think he's here today. Right. So we keep it for a time when Aradhya is around. Uh, 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 uh. So there are many such sessions. So Nilashi ma'am, since you're here, would you like to read? Nilashi? Or is Nilashi missing now? Yeah, Nilashi is missing. Okay, so we'll do it when she is around. So I'm going to stop sharing now. Manisha ma'am, we're going to run out of time. So let's get to your part of the reading, right?
Yes, sir. Is my screen visible?
Hanji, bilkul.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So I would request everyone, since you all are very keen in reading and less of it, I have received reflection from many of you, but it was little less. So right now I would request, can you see the entire picture?
आप ऊपर वाला नहीं दिख रहा मनीषा
Okay. I think
थोड़ा छोटा
something
करो
went wrong.
हाँ
Now it's better? Okay.
या
So we all know reading is magic. They take us to another world. So I would like you to see the picture and write one or two sentences on it. You can write in the chat box, or if you want, you can unmute yourself because I've unmuted quite a few of you. So you can unmute and talk. If you write in the chat box, what will I do? I'll collect everything from the chat box and put it as a reflection. And we are going to put it in our website also.
Manisha ma'am, if I truly tell you what the feeling I'm getting looking at this picture, my real feeling is that on the right hand side I can see the sun. In the other room, all I want to do is take a book and start reading there.
Yes, this is what exactly required because last so many days the sun was not there. So yes, this is. So can anyone tell me what is there? What you all can see from the picture? Is the picture telling you something? Nothing. Picture is not telling you anything. What about this picture? Is this saying something? Yes, Myra?
Ma'am, in this picture, there are a few kids reading books, and
Mm-hmm.
out of the books, they're coming like lots of characters and things. So basically, what it's trying to say is that reading can take you to different worlds. Like there's a witch hat on top of the book, a rocket ship, a dragon. So you can experience different worlds by just reading.
That is exactly what the book tells us. So, reading takes you to another world, another dimension. And when somebody is reading or you are reading, you're trying to understand what is happening around. And yes, it is also a stress buster. So, if you have any kind of stress, reading and understanding the problem of other people, or reading and understanding the beauty of the nature, or doing something else, really, it gives you a magical effect. What about the other picture on the left side of my screen? How many children are there? Can you see both the pictures or only one you
No,
can
I can
see?
only see one.
You can see
One
only one.
picture with this girl sitting on top of the pile of books and one boy sitting on the ground and another girl.
Okay, both are not
Maybe
visible.
and only one is.
Okay, just 1 minute.
But
Let me
we
see.
saw a great example of
This one.
how reading, how somebody is written and taken us to a different world, right? In the book that we are reading before, My Family and Other Animals. It's a really good example. Yeah, this one, now we can see this picture. Mountaineering.
I don't know what
I,
happened. Yeah. Is it visible now?
yeah, we can see one.
Yeah, this is only. I was trying to show both of it together, but I think something went wrong. Now, what are the children
Only
doing? And how many of them are here? This is actually the title of my next story, which I'm going to read from Ruskin Bond. So quickly guess the name of the story. Then I'll start reading the book. Yes. Can anyone guess the name of the chapter or the story? It's a little kind of riddle. I have put it for you for the name. Any try? So do you wish to try?
he has all kinds of names for his stories, right? So
What did you say, Aditya?
The whistling.
Yes, this is the book, Whistling, Schoolboy, and Other Stories. And Other Stories, the
Ma'am,
chapter or
can
the
I?
story which I'm going to read is this.
Ma'am, can I?
Yes,
yeah,
Talat? But I think
मैम
you have the book.
यस मैम ग्लेशियर पर पहुंचे चार लड़के
Exactly. Glacier per Poche. But this is, you already have the book. So never mind. No problem. Okay, Glacier पर पहुंचे चार. आगे क्या है?
लड़के
Very good. So the chapter which I'm going to read today is Glacier पर पहुंचे चार लड़के. So एक दिन जब बारिश होने की प्रबल संभावना बनी हुई थी, तब हम लोग बस में सवार हो गए थे और फिर हम हिमालय ट्रैक के प्रारंभिक स्थल कपकोट पर पहुंच जाते हैं। उस वक्त मैं 17 वर्ष का था, जबकि अनिल और सोमी 16 के थे। हम सभी के पास अपना झूला था। व्हाट इज झूला? एनीवन? व्हाट इज झोला? झोला क्या होता है?
हम थैला
थैला, बैग। वेरी गुड। और साथ ही हम सभी ठीक ठाक साइज का अपना अपना बिस्तर भी लेकर आए थे। तो आप घूमने गए कहीं पर तो आपको झोला, अपना बैग और बिस्तर, दैट इज योर बेडिंग एंड ऑल, वो जरूरी है लेके जाना कि सब जगह मिल जाता है? मिलता है कि लेके जाना होता है?
जहाँ पे ये लोग जा रहे हैं वहां पे तो मुश्किल है, मेरे को लगता है मिलना।
ट्रू। युवराज, आप कुछ
युवराज,
कहना चाहेंगे?
Yes, ma'am. I don't think that every place where snow can be like places will be have beds and every supplies that need in mountain climbing. So I think that we should not be dependent on the on those things. So we should need to carry all things with us.
दैट इज राइट, वेरी गुड। यस, हमें डिपेंड नहीं होना चाहिए किसी और चीजों पे, पर जो जो चीजें हमारी रिक्वायरमेंट है उसको हमें अपने साथ ही लेके जाना चाहिए। जिसे अनिल की माँ ने सोच समझकर हम लोगों को दिया था। तो यहाँ पे जो माँ है बच्चों की, वो बहुत ही सोच समझ के उन्होंने सारी पैकिंग करी थी। उन्हें भी पता था कि चीजें नहीं मिलेगी रास्ते में, काफी उन्हें परेशानी हो सकती है, तो उन्होंने एक लिस्ट बना के काफी अच्छे से दे दिया था। हालांकि हमें बिल्कुल भी पता नहीं था कि एक बार चलना शुरू करने के बाद हम अपने साथ लाए बिस्तर रोल को कैसे ले जाएंगे। लेकिन हमने इसकी बहुत ज्यादा चिंता नहीं की। बहुत ही जल्द हमने कुमाऊं के पहाड़ों में प्रवेश कर लिया। हम घुमावदार सड़कों को जो ऊपर से नीचे ले जा रही थी, पर तब तक आगे बढ़ते रहे जब तक कि हमने नीचे घाटी में फैले छोटे से शहर और उस शहर के बीच से रिबन की चांदी से बहती नदी को नहीं देखा। तभी बस ने तीखा मोड़ लिया और एक बार फिर से घाटी गायब हो गई और पहाड़ हमारे सामने प्रकट हो गए। आप लोग गए कभी इस तरीके के रोड पे? पहाड़ों पे गए आप कभी पेरेंट्स के साथ या स्कूल ट्रिप पे, या आप रहते हैं ऐसी जगह पे जहां पे इस तरीके की पहाड़ी होती है और सिनरी दिखाई पड़ती है? वृंदा मैम भी कह
गरिमा
रही थी
गई
तुम्हारे
होगी,
बच्चे बहुत चुप
पक्का।
है। हाँ जी सर।
हम तो बहुत गए हैं भाई, अपने बच्चों के साथ ही, स्कूल के बच्चों के साथ ऐसे भी गए हैं, है ना। बहुत मजा आता है। और हर जगह पहाड़ी एकदम अलग सा होता है। हर जगह का आप कहीं और चले जाओगे आपको अलग ही फीलिंग आएगा। कहीं पर तो एकदम बैरन होता है, देख के ही डर लगे जिसको, है ना, टेरिफाइंग एस्पेक्ट ऑफ नेचर जहाँ आपको दिखाई देगा। कहीं पर तो इतना सुंदर होता है कि लगता है जैसे किसी ने सोन पापड़ी के कतरी काट रखे हैं और वो सूरज की रोशनी पड़ रहा है उस पे और वो उसमें चमक रहा है। कांट टेल यू हाउ ब्यूटीफुल इट इज, है ना। यू जस्ट कहीं पे तो नीचे से नदी बहते रहता है और पता नहीं क्या क्या होता है। यू कांट, एंड देन देयर आर प्लेसेस व्हेन यू कैन सी द स्नो कैप्ड माउंटेन्स, और उसमें भी अलग अलग फीलिंग्स आते हैं। आप हर्षिल में चले जाइए एक अलग फीलिंग आएगा, आप उत्तरकाशी चले जाइए एक अलग फीलिंग आएगा, आप ट्रैवल कर रहे हैं तो एक अलग फीलिंग आएगा। ब्यूटीफुल। एंड ये जो आप कह रहे हैं कि घुमावदार सड़क जो, दो थिंग सडनली यू कम अक्रॉस ऋषिकेश में एक बार एंटर की थी तो सी द फर्स्ट थिंग दैट अफेक्टेड मी वाज द, it looked like a wall of mountain. It did not look as if it was slopey. It looked like a steep wall
अभी
full of
सॉरी मैम मैं बीच में बोल रही हूँ, पर अभी ऋषिकेश में ग्लास ब्रिज भी आ गया है तो उसका इनॉग्रेशन शायद हो चुका है, तो मौका मिले तो सब जा सकते हैं।
जी।
सर जुगजीत साहब कुछ कहना चाह रहे थे?
नियम सिंह, पीवीडीआईएस के बच्चे रिलेट करते हैं इससे, गरिमा रिलेट करेगी इससे, उन्होंने गए पहाड़ों में रहते हैं वो।
एग्जैक्टली सर। सो कपकोट में नाश्ता किया और दुकानदार ने हमसे कहा कि यदि हम लोग चाहें तो उसके एक कमरे में रात बिता सकते हैं। क्योंकि ऐसी जगह पे जब आप ट्रैक या माउंटेनियरिंग के लिए जाते हैं कोई होटल वगैरह नहीं होता, तो ऐसे ही जो छोटी मोटी दुकानें हैं उसके आसपास या टेंटिंग करके हम लोग ज्यादातर रुकते हैं। वहां इर्द गिर्द का मौसम सुहावना था। पहाड़ियां देवदार के पेड़ों से भरी हुई थी और नीचे ढाल पर ताजे हरे धान बोए हुए थे। रात को हवा के झोंके शय शय की आवाज करते हुए जहां हम सोए हुए थे उस कमरे की खिड़की की दरारों से होते हुए हमारे कंबल में घुस रहे थे। अगली सुबह हमने दुकान के पास की ही एक छोटी सी धारा पर अपना मुंह धोया और एक दिन की यात्रा पर निकलने के लिए बोतलों में पानी भरा। पास के गांव का लड़का हमारे पास यह जानने के लिए आया कि हम कहाँ जा रहे थे। सोमी ने कहा, ग्लेशियर जा रहे। लड़का बोला, मैं तुम लोगों के साथ चलूंगा, मुझे रास्ते का पता है। अनिल ने कहा, तुम बहुत छोटे हो, हमें ऐसे व्यक्ति की जरूरत है जो हमारा बिस्तर रोल उठा कर ले चले। लड़का बोला, मैं छोटा जरूर हूं पर ताकतवर। वाकई वह दिखने में हट्टा कट्टा था। उसके गाल गुलाबी थे और उसका शरीर गठा हुआ था। उसने कहा, देखो। और फिर क्या था, उसने एक फुटबॉल के साइज का पत्थर उठा लिया और फिर हमने उस पत्थर को नदी में फेंक दिया। मैंने कहा, मुझे लगता है कि वह हमारे साथ चल सकता है। और फिर क्या था, अब हम सब ने चलना शुरू कर दिया। पहले हम छोटी सरयू नदी के ऊपर हिस्से की तरफ गए, फिर खच्चरों के लिए बने उबड़ खाबड़ रास्ते पर चलते हुए ऊपर की तरफ चढ़ने लगे। खच्चर किसे कहते हैं मालूम है आपको? क्या आपको पता है खच्चर क्या है?
Yes, ma'am. I think it's a breed of horses that you mostly use in Kedarnath, where some people who used to make other peoples to travel here, they use those khachars to let them move upper part of that Kedarnath mountain.
वेरी गुड, थैंक
मैम
यू।
वो
या
मैम वो हॉर्सेस की तरह दिखते हैं।
वेरी गुड। जहां हर वक्त पानी के बहने की आवाज का एहसास होता रहा और हम तेज, हरे और जोर से बहते पानी की झलक यदा कदा ले लिया करते थे। हम 15 मील की दूरी को तय करने के बाद शाम 6 बजे जंगलात के रेस्ट हाउस पहुंच चुके थे। वहां पहुंचने पर अनिल ने देखा कि चौकीदार धुंधली धूप में सोया हुआ था। उसने चौकीदार को जगाया। चौकीदार को किसी भी आगंतुक ने कई हफ्तों से परेशान नहीं किया था। अचानक हमें वहां पाकर वह बड़बड़ाने लगा, लेकिन फिर उसने हमारे लिए एक कमरा खोल दिया। इतना ही नहीं, बल्कि उसने स्टोर से कुछ आलू और हमारे लिए लाके रख दिए। उन आलूओं को रात के खाने के लिए भुना गया। खाना खाने के बाद जैसे ही हम अपने बिस्तर में जाने की तैयारी कर रहे थे, हमने नालीदार टिन की छत पर एक आवाज सुनी और फिर किसी की या किसी चीज की इधर से उधर भागने की आवाज सुनी। बहुत तेज दौड़ रहा था। चौकीदार ने हमें बताया कि यदि आप लोगों को लिडनी कभी दिखाई पड़ जाए और आपका पीछा करने लगे, तो याद रखिए आप हमेशा ऊपर की दिशा में दौड़े, न कि ढलान पर। ऐसा करने से वह अपने टेढ़े पैरों के कारण जल्दी ही थक जाती है, लेकिन ढलान पर दौड़ते वक्त उसे किसी भी तरह की परेशानी नहीं होती है। और याद रखो, ऐसे में तुम्हें उससे बचने के लिए बहुत तेज दौड़ना पड़ेगा। अनिल ने घबराहट में हंसते हुए पूछा, कोई नहीं, हम काफी तेज भागते हैं। और वैसे भी यह एक परी कथा के अलावा कुछ भी नहीं है। मुझे कहानी पर बिल्कुल भी विश्वास नहीं है। अनिल की इस बात को सुनकर चौकीदार बहुत नाराज हो गया और उसने हमें हिम मानव और हिम औरत के बारे में कुछ और बताने से साफ इनकार कर दिया। लेकिन उसने विष्णु को आग जलाने में मदद की और हमें एक काली चिपचिपी मिठाई दी, जिसे हमने बड़े प्यार से और चाव से खाया। अगले दिन सुबह जब ग्लेशियर पहुंचे और फिर हमने अंतिम 7 मील की दूरी को तय करने के लिए यात्रा शुरू की, तो मौसम सुहावना था और धूप निकली हुई थी। हमने सोचा था कि आगे का रास्ता कठिन चढ़ाई भरा होगा, पर चूंकि रेस्ट हाउस समुद्र तल से 11,000 फीट ऊपर था, इसलिए बाकी की चढ़ाई हमें आहिस्ता आहिस्ता चढ़नी थी। एकाएक अचानक पेड़ दिखाई देना बंद हो गए। बंगले नजरों से ओझल होने के साथ ही छोटी घास और छोटे गुलाबी और नीले रंग के अल्पाइन फूल पेड़ों और झाड़ियों की जगह लेने लगे। अब बर्फ की चोटियां करीब दिखाई दे रही थी और हमें हर दिशा से घेर रही थी। हम पानी के बहते सफेद झरनों से होकर गुजरे, जो कि खड़ी चट्टानों के सैकड़ों फीट नीचे गिरते हुए छोटी नदी में मिल रहे थे। वहां पर एक बड़ा सफेद चील हमारे ऊपर मंडरा रहा था। पहाड़ी हमसे दूर हो गई थी और अब उसकी जगह हमारे सामने बर्फ से भरा एक बड़ा सफेद मैदान था। यह मैदान दो चमकती चोटियों के बीच फैला हुआ था। हम कुछ क्षणों के लिए निस्तब्ध होकर बस उसे देखते ही रह गए। फिर हम सभी ने फिसलन वाली सतह पर एक दूसरे को सहारा देते हुए सावधानी के साथ आगे बढ़ना शुरू किया। हम ज्यादा दूर तक नहीं जा सके, क्योंकि हम में से कोई भी इतनी ऊंची चढ़ाई चढ़ने को बिल्कुल भी तैयार नहीं था। क्या आपको लगता है कि ये चढ़ाई चढ़ने के लिए आपको कोई प्रैक्टिस की जरूरत है या कोई स्पेशल अटायर की जरूरत है?
यस मैम।
क्यों? क्यों? वाई?
क्योंकि वहां पर मैम चढ़ान होती है, एकदम सिंपल रोड होती
जहाँ पे चढ़ाई होती है वहां सिंपल रोड होती है।
मैम वहाँ पे मैम चढ़ना बहुत मुश्किल होता है, इसकी वजह से मैम हमें प्रैक्टिस करके जाना होता है।
ओके, तो मुश्किल
है।
क्यों होता है?
मैम अगर हम प्रैक्टिस करके नहीं जाएंगे तो अगर कोई डेंजरस सिचुएशन आई तो हमें मालूम नहीं होगा कि उसमें क्या करना है।
ठीक है, डेंजरस सिचुएशन में हम समझेंगे नहीं, तो आप डेंजरस सिचुएशन से क्या आप कुछ बताना चाहेंगे? आपके हिसाब से डेंजरस सिचुएशन क्या हो सकती है? कोई बताना चाहेगा? अच्छा, आपने कभी सुना है लैंडस्लाइड हो गई है? क्या होता है लैंडस्लाइड
यस
में? क्या होता है बेटा उसमें, लैंडस्लाइड्स में?
मैम, आई थिंक लैंडस्लाइड मीन्स पहाड़ों का टूटना।
ओके, लैंड का स्लाइड हो जाना। तो ऐसा
जैसे
क्यों
मैम
होता है?
ऊपर की रेत होती
बेटा आपकी आवाज क्लियर नहीं है, फिर से बोलेंगे?
रेत होती है वो नीचे
हमें स्पेशल अटायर और थोड़ी बहुत ट्रेनिंग की इसलिए भी जरूरत पड़ती है कि जो बर्फ वाला हिस्सा होता है बहुत फिसलन वाला होता है, और वहां पे हमारे जो नॉर्मल स्पोर्ट्स शूज होते हैं उनकी ग्रिप सही नहीं रहती है। तो थोड़ा सा अगर हम फिसलना शुरू करते हैं तो बहुत ही ज्यादा डेंजर हो जाता है, क्योंकि कई बार पानी पे भी बर्फ जम जाती है, हमें लगता है पहाड़ है बट एक्चुअली उसके स्तर पे पानी होता है। तो हम वहां पे भी हमें डूबने का चांसेस रह जाता है। और लैंडस्लाइड चूंकि होती है तो गिरने का भी चांसेस है। तो हमें हर तरीके से अपने आप को रेडी रखना होता है एडवर्स कंडीशन के लिए। इसलिए थोड़ी बहुत पैकिंग, थोड़ी बहुत उस जगह की समझ और थोड़ा बहुत प्रैक्टिस की बहुत ही ज्यादा जरूरत रहती है। आगे देखिए स्टोरी में क्या हो रहा है।
एक मिनट मैम, सबको
जी।
पता है ग्लेशियर क्या है?
ग्लेशियर क्या है बच्चों? ग्लेशियर जितना पानी के ऊपर होता है वही होता है कि और भी कुछ है?
Maybe glacier means frozen water.
A
हम्म।
glacier is a river of ice, you can say.
Ma'am,
Okay.
I think glacier means a mountain made up of ice, like it was shown in movie of Titanic.
जो मीनाक्षी मैम ने अभी बताया, दैट्स द बेस्ट वे टू थिंक अबाउट इट। जैसे गर्मा भी कह रही है, इट्स अ रिवर ऑफ आइस। तो आइस और स्नो का मिश्रण है जो चलता है, जैसे जैसे रिवर चलता है ना, वैसे ही। दैट्स व्हाट अ ग्लेशियर इज।
और टाइटैनिक वाले को कहते हैं आइसबर्ग। आइसबर्ग जो होता है वो समुद्र में एक बड़ा सा टुकड़ा ऑफ आइस गिर जाता है, जिसका आपको 1/10 हिस्सा दिखता है, 9/10 नहीं दिखता है, क्योंकि आइस फ्लोट्स इन वाटर। है ना, आइस जो होता है पानी से हल्का होता है, इसलिए फ्लोट करता है। तो टाइटैनिक में वो था, दैट वाज एन आइसबर्ग।
सो कंप्रेस्ड आइस जो है वो हो जाता है आपका ग्लेशियर। सूरज की किरणें बर्फ से तेजी से टकराकर हमें गर्माहट का एहसास करा रही थी। सूरज हमारे शरीर पर रेंगते हुए हमारी हड्डियों की गहराई में डूबा जा रहा था। इससे हमें आनंद की अनुभूति हो रही थी। इस बीच हमारी कहीं से आए अज्ञात बादलों ने कुछ पहाड़ की चोटियों को अपने आगोश में ले लिया, और पहाड़ के ढलानों पर सफेद धुंध छा गई थी। हमारे लौटने का वक्त हो गया था। अंधेरा होने से पहले हम बहुत मुश्किल से बंगले पर वापस पहुंच पाए थे। कपकोट लौटकर आते समय हम सरयू नदी पर पहुंचे, जहां हमने उन गांव के सड़कों के साथ नहाया जिससे हम ग्लेशियर की ओर जाते वक्त मिले थे। हमने स्ट्रॉबेरी, फर्न और जंगली फूल इकट्ठे किए और फिर आखिर में विष्णु को अलविदा कहकर निकल पड़े। हालांकि अनिल विष्णु को हम लोगों के साथ ले चलना चाहता था, लेकिन उसके माता पिता ने यह कहकर रोक लिया कि अभी वह शहर की जिंदगी को जीने के लिए बहुत छोटा है। सोमी विष्णु को बोला, कोई बात नहीं, हम अगले साल फिर से ट्रैक के लिए आएंगे और उस वक्त तुम्हें अपने साथ ले जाएंगे। सोमी के इन शब्दों ने विष्णु को खुश कर दिया, और फिर वह हमारे बिस्तर रोल को कंधे पर उठाकर बस स्टॉप हमें अलविदा करने आया। बस के चलने के बाद वह हमारी अंतिम झलक को पाने के लिए एक देवदार के पेड़ पर चढ़ गया, और जब बस कपकोट के बंद से मुड़ी तो हमने उसे पेड़ के पास हाथ हिलाते हुए देखा, और फिर पहाड़ियां पीछे छूटती गईं और नीचे फैला हुआ मैदान आ गया। So this was the end of the story. तो यहाँ पे कुछ बच्चे, खासतौर से 4 बच्चे ग्लेशियर पर जाने के लिए बहुत ज्यादा उत्साहित थे, तो उन्होंने एक छोटी सी ट्रिप बनाई और ट्रिप पे वो गए। वहां पे उनको और कुछ चीजों के बारे में पता चला। और उन्हें लग रहा था कि इतने ऊपर हम जाएंगे, हमें ठंड लगेगी, सोने की जरूरत पड़ेगी, तो बिस्तर भी उन्हें चाहिए, बेडिंग वगैरह चाहिए। तो उन्होंने एक छोटे से बच्चे की हेल्प ली, जो छोटा जरूर था, सिटी लाइफ भी जीना चाहता था, लेकिन उसके पेरेंट्स ने उसे मना किया। तो उनकी ट्रिप ऊपर गई, और ऊपर जाकर के वो लोग खुशी खुशी नीचे आ गए। तो नेचर की ब्यूटी उन्होंने देखा, और ब्यूटी को देख करके वो नीचे आ गए। क्या कोई कुछ कहना चाहेगा इसके बारे में?
हाँ जी, मैं पूछना चाहूंगा, जो हमने पढ़ा ये अभी, ये जो रिवर था, रिवर का क्या नाम था, नदी का क्या नाम था, इसको
समथिंग
याद
विद
है?
एस।
you?
किसी को याद है? हाँ जी।
आदित्य ने बोला सरयू।
हाँ जी, सरयू कनेक्ट करता है उत्तराखंड और अयोध्या को, PYDS एंड वाराणसी, नॉट वाराणसी बट अयोध्या, connected Saryu River. So I don't know, Garima, PYTS, somebody will certainly have physically been there.
Yes, sir.
Uh, आपके एरिया से निकलता है सरयू रिवर।
हम्म। ये नदी और पहाड़ और सड़कें हमें सर हर जगह से कहीं ना कहीं से कनेक्ट करती है। तो ऐसे ही माई गुड स्कूल अलग अलग शहर में बच्चे बैठे हुए हैं और हमें कनेक्ट कर रहा है। तो जैसे कि अभी आपने कहा, नदी की ही तरह हम लोग हैं, हम लोग एक दूसरे को कनेक्ट कर रहे हैं फॉर अ हैप्पियर रीडिंग, अंडरस्टैंडिंग एंड नोइंग द वर्ल्ड बेटर। तो चूंकि मैंने आपको वो पिक्चर दिखा के बोला था, आप लोग कुछ लिखना चाहेंगे चैट बॉक्स में, जैसे कि मैं लेके उसे मैसेज बना के वेबसाइट में अपने पब्लिश कर सकूं, या आप मुझे रिफ्लेक्शन भेजना चाहेंगे थ्रू योर टीचर्स? क्या करना चाहेंगे आप? आपके पास चॉइस है। अभी आप चाहे तो आप लिख सकते हैं मैसेज में, और नहीं तो फिर आप अपने टीचर्स को भेज सकते हैं। या अभी आपको भी धूप पे बैठने का मन हो रहा है?
एक्चुअली इतना मेरा धूप तो वैसे पहले से देख रहा था, आपने जब किताब दिखाई तब ज्यादा मन बना।
जो बहुत ज्यादा किताब पढ़ता है उन्हें क्या बोलते हैं? उनके लिए कुछ नाम है?
मैम किताबी कीड़ा।
हाँ,
और क्या है? बिब्लियो फाइल। और क्या नाम है? किताबी कीड़ा तो आपने बोल दिया। यस, आकांक्षा ने लिखा है, दिस इज द करेक्ट स्पेलिंग। और किताब पढ़ने से हमें क्या मिलता है? डू वी गेट समथिंग? डू वी अंडरस्टैंड समथिंग?
मैम नॉलेज।
नॉलेज। और क्या
Ma'am,
मिलता है?
we learn new words and improve some of our vocabulary.
It
Vocabulary.
improves your vocabulary, you learn
मैम
something,
वे
so
टू
knowledge will
इम्प्रूव इमेजिनेशन एंड क्रिएटिविटी।
तो इमेजिनेशन और क्रिएटिविटी क्यों हमें जरूरी है एनहांस करने के लिए? नॉलेज। ओके। और क्या है जरूरी?
मैं तो कहूंगी मुझे सपनों का की दुनिया में ले जाता है, पूरी दुनिया का सैर करा देता है ना। नॉलेज वॉलेज तो बाद में आता है, नॉलेज हो जाता है इन द प्रोसेस, बट आई एंजॉय रीडिंग बुक बिकॉज इट टेक्स मी टू अ ड्रीम वर्ल्ड एंड इट शोज मी द, आई मीन, इट टेक्स मी अ ट्रिप राउंड द वर्ल्ड। ओके। एंड इमेजिनेशन, माय गॉड, इमेजिनेशन का क्या कहना। उसमें तो आप कुछ भी कर सकते हो। जैसे उन्होंने लिख दिया था, जूल्स वर्न ने, 20 ये अ जर्नी टू द सेंटर ऑफ द अर्थ। अर्थ के अंदर एक पैरेलल अर्थ है जिसमें मैमथ्स वगैरह सब रहते हैं। हालांकि अब हमें पता है ऐसा कुछ नहीं है, लेकिन उसको पढ़ने में कितना मजा आता है। कुछ कुछ तो उनका जो लिखा हुआ है, जैसे 20,000 लीग्स अंडर द सी, वो तो सच भी निकल गया कि हाँ क्या होता है, या अराउंड द वर्ल्ड, है ना। तो वो सो रियली डज, इट्स वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग। एक शायद लॉस्ट वर्ल्ड पढ़ा था, जहाँ पे ऊपर में एक माउंटेन था जहाँ पे डायनासोर्स रहते थे, और ये लोग पहुंच गए वहां पे। तो देयर सो मेनी थिंग्स, आई मीन उसको तो हम लोग बुक्स के पैरेलल का घूमना तो हमारा हो ही नहीं सकता है।
वेरी ट्रू,
इमेजिन।
बिकॉज सो दिस इज वेरी मच इम्पोर्टेंट कि बुक रीडिंग हम करते रहे, इट टेक्स अस टू द पैरेलल वर्ल्ड एंड यस, काफी जानकारियां हमें मिलती है। और उन जानकारियों से कुछ चीजें होती है जो हमारे दिल के अंदर रहती है, तो वो दिल की बातें भी बाहर आ जाती है, क्योंकि हमें प्रोत्साहन मिलता है, वी गेट एनकरेजमेंट। हमारी क्यूरियोसिटी को तो यस वो एनहांस कर ही रही है, और एनकरेज होके हम अपने आप को और अच्छे से बता सकते हैं लोगों के सामने, उसको हम यूटिलाइज कर सकते हैं, और आगे हम ग्रो भी कर सकते हैं। सो विद दिस लास्ट
जैसे
वर्ड टू यू जगदीप
गरिमा
सर।
कह रही है कि माउंटेनियरिंग के बारे में पढ़ा, तो अब इसको प्रोत्साहन मिला है कि वो भी जाए आसपास, माउंटेनियरिंग करे, तो दैट्स गुड। अनूप
सर्टेनली।
सर को कहो मिड टर्म ऑर्गेनाइज करे आपके लिए, हाँ, तो उनको बोलो मिड टर्म ऑर्गेनाइज करे, वो समझ जाएंगे क्या कह रहा हूँ।
तो
सर
मैंने
आप तो
बोला
बहुत
है।
बोला है ना,
अच्छा।
हाँ हाँ, करेंगे करेंगे, देखिए जाना चाहिए। आपकी
सर्टेनली।
उम्र का था जब मैं गौमुख गया था स्कूल से, तो करना चाहिए।
वंडरफुल। सो so do you want to say something or should we end?
नो, वी कैन, अनलेस somebody else wants to say something.
हम्म। कोई कुछ बोलना चाहेगा? आप कभी अपने पेरेंट्स के साथ ट्रिप पे गए, उसके बारे में कुछ बताना चाहेंगे, या माउंटेनियरिंग आपने कभी करी, या इस तरीके के पास में आप कहीं पे 2-3 दिन गए, हिमाचल है, शिमला है, जम्मू
ऐसे
कश्मीर
ट्रिप
में?
के साथ तो मैम, पेरेंट्स के साथ तो बहुत बोरिंग होगा। इफ यू आस्क, यू नीड टू गो विद फ्रेंड्स।
सर आजकल के जो पेरेंट्स हैं वो भी इतनी बोरिंग नहीं करते हैं, चीजें
अच्छा,
थोड़ा सा
ओके,
फन हो
दैट्स
जाता
गुड।
है, बट फिर मे बी इट डिपेंड्स, सारे पेरेंट्स एक जैसे नहीं है।
ओके।
आई विश एक सिमिलर चैप्टर हो सी साइड को लेकर, क्योंकि वो भी इतना ही इंटरेस्टिंग रहेगा अगर बात किया जाए अलग अलग जगह जाने का। ये तो इन लोगों ने ग्लेशियर वगैरह गए।
मे बी रस्किन बॉन्ड जहाँ रहते हैं वहां पे ये सब चीजें जहाँ दिखती है, एंड इज वेरी क्लोज टू नेचर, शायद
तो
उनकी
दैट
बुक के लिए है ये सारी चीजें। तो okay, thank you everyone for joining. We will be waiting next week and एग्जाम स्टार्ट हो रहा है या होने वाला है, तो नो वरीज, 1 घंटा 2 घंटे का टाइम तो हम निकाल ही सकते हैं, क्योंकि हम हर समय तो पढ़ते ही नहीं है। एंड बुक रीडिंग इज ऑलवेज अ फन, you get to understand many things, you have an enhanced vocabulary, and yes, do write your reflection so that we can publish it. Thank you everyone, a very happy week ahead. Bye bye, take care.
बाय।
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon,
Good
sir.
afternoon.
Thank you.
जय हिंद, बाय।
जय हिंद, जय हिंद सर।
Bye. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Bye bye, Tata.